And welcome to the Free Your Geek podcast. I am your host, Jay Free, and welcome to Fantasy Fable Friday. In the twilight heart of the Starveil Grove, where light and shadow never part, one vow forged a hunter and a legend. You're listening to Starveil, the Oath of Frostwing, a 6-part origin story starring my Daggerheart character, Sylvaris Frostwing. Before the name Sylvaris Frostwing was whispered in legend, he was simply a fairy wanderer of the endless twilight, one voice within the Starveil Grove's living heart. This 6-part origin series follows his transformation from student to hunter, from protector to exile. When a swarm of glass-winged locusts devour his homeland, Sylvaris swears an oath that binds him to the Grove's survival, and to the shadows beyond its borders. What begins as duty becomes destiny, as beauty turns to ruin, and a single vow forges the hunter the Grove will never forget. Welcome to Starveil, the Oath of Frostwing. Previously on Starveil, the Oath of Frostwing. In the twilight heart of Starveil Grove, young Sylvaris learned the ancient ways of the Wayfinders, listening to the hum of the forest and the language of the wind. When a glass-wing locust appeared, the first sign of corruption, the balance of the grove shattered. The swarm followed, a storm of hunger that devoured light and life alike. From its ashes, Sylvaris swore an oath to the hunt. His vow was tested by the dire crow, a creature born of the swarm's decay. Scarred but victorious, he became the grove's hunter in truth. Drawn by the whispers to the ruined amber court, he faced the temptation of forbidden power and turned away, though the ruin's mark lingered within him. Months later, as Starveil healed, he defended a lost wanderer from a hollow creature, proof that the corruption had not died, only drifted beyond the trees. Now the grove sleeps once more, and the hunter stands at its edge, ready to walk north into a world still shadowed by what began beneath the Starveil. Episode 6: The Oath and the North. Dawn never came to Starveil Grove, but that morning the twilight felt different, lighter, almost hesitant. The air carried the scent of thawing earth and new rain. Dew glimmered on every branch, small jewels clinging to the memory of night. Sylvaris walked in silence beneath the ancient canopy, following the path that led to the grove's heart. His wounds had healed, but his body still remembered the ache. 3 nights had passed since the hollow stag's fall. The grove had grown restless since then, its rhythm uneven, its winds changing direction as though uncertain of their keeper. He could feel it in his pulse, in the hum beneath the soil. Starveil no longer needed guarding, it needed release. The balance he'd fought to preserve had shifted, pointing outward, beyond its borders. He reached the glade where the amber quartz light still bled faintly through the trees. The ruins themselves slept under a blanket of moss and silence. Here, among the remains of pride and ruin, he had made his decision. He unfastened the small pouch at his belt and took out a smooth stone wrapped in cloth, the token of Leraith, his mentor. The old wayfinder had carried it always, a fragment of starstone, said to have fallen the day the grove was born. When Leraith was taken by the swarm, Sylvaris had found it among the ashes. For months he had kept it close, a weight of memory and guilt. Now, as he knelt in the clearing, it felt less like a relic and more like a seed that had finished its season. He dug a hollow in the soil with his hands, the earth damp and cool. The scar on his cheek caught the light, pale against the shadow. He placed the token inside, pressing the cloth flat before covering it again. He whispered nothing. The grove already knew his thoughts. Roots shifted beneath him, curling softly around the buried stone, sealing it in place. A faint glow pulsed once from the ground, then faded. The air grew still. It was done. Sylvaris stood and lifted his gaze to the canopy. The branches above seemed to breathe, their leaves trembling with the sigh of wind. For the first time in months, the grove sounded calm, solemn but at peace. Its whispers no longer warned or pleaded. They spoke gratitude, quiet and final. But the calm did not reach beyond its borders. Sylvaris could feel the corruption still moving, faint but steady, drifting north like smoke seeking new air. The hollow spawn had been only a shadow of something greater, something gathering in places where no one watched. His nights had been filled with dreams of wings, glass and frost, rising against distant skies. The storm that began here was not over. He returned to his shelter near the Mirror Creek, where the water still ran clear despite the grove's scars. The lantern that had guided him since his oath rested on a stump beside a bundle of travel gear: cloak, rations, a new haft for his spear. He had prepared these things without realizing it, as if the forest itself had guided his hands. The moment he picked up the lantern, its flame flared brighter, blue-white, reflecting in his eyes like captured lightning. He looked once more toward the grove's heart. Every root, every leaf, every breath of mist had been his home. Yet even home could become a cage when duty outgrew its walls. He felt no sadness, only the pull of purpose, the same instinct that guided migrations, tides, and seasons. The world beyond the grove called, and Sylvaris was ready to answer. As he stepped onto the path northward, the ground beneath him changed. The moss gave way to stone. The air grew sharper, colder. Above, the eternal twilight broke into something new, a horizon of silver clouds, faintly glowing with unseen light. Sylvaris paused, feeling the wind on his face, and for a heartbeat, it carried the scent of feathers and frost. Something waited for him in that direction, something bound to his vow. He tightened the strap on his pack, the lantern swinging softly at his side. Behind him, the grove exhaled a long, low breath. The sound rippled through the trees, neither farewell nor mourning, only acknowledgement. Its guardian was leaving, but its memory would walk with him. At the forest's edge stood an old tree, its bark carved with patterns too faint to read. He placed a hand against it, the scar on his cheek burning faintly in reply. A last exchange between protector and place. Then he stepped beyond the roots and into the open wild. The world outside greeted him with wind and silence. The ground sloped downward into a sea of mist that caught the faint glow of distant fires, perhaps camps, perhaps something worse. Somewhere beyond those hills lay the mortal settlements whispered of by travelers, and beyond them the gathering storm. Sylvaris walked until the grove's light vanished behind him. The forest's hum faded, replaced by the vast, empty rhythm of the open world. Yet even here, he could still feel Starveil's heartbeat faint beneath his own, a pulse that would never truly leave him. The scar on his face cooled, its ache fading into stillness. The oath he had sworn no longer felt like a burden, it felt like direction. At the crest of a ridge he stopped. The sky stretched before him, endless and uncertain. For the first time since the swarm, he smiled, a small, quiet thing that didn't reach his eyes, but carried meaning nonetheless. Under the silver clouds of the north, Sylvaris Frostwing took his first step toward destiny, and the grove whispered his name into the wind. This concludes Starveil, the Oath of Frostwing. Thank you so much for listening and sharing this journey. For Sylvaris, the hunt continues beyond the grove. And for you, my wonderful listeners, join me next time for more exciting tales and more Fantasy Fable Fridays on Free Your Geek.